What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be discussing Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. Now, in this video, I'm going to break it down into three parts. My first part will be about the movie-going experience itself. The second part will be addressing some of the controversy around this movie. And the third part will be about my historical analysis, mythological analysis of the film. Now, for those of you that know me or have followed my channel, you know that I'm a big history nerd, so we're going to get into that real big in that third part. But for right now, let's go ahead and talk about the movie itself. Now, from a film-going perspective, I will say that this movie is going to appeal to a large audience. It's going to be lauded by the common moviegoer, as it already has been. I myself have seen the movie twice because I wanted to make sure I digested it all before making this review here. It's quite a lot to digest considering it's 3 hours long. So overall, in regards to the film, I will say that it is generally entertaining. I would say most of the time in the movie. It is very long. However, the pacing seems to be pretty well managed. There's not too much drag, I would say. I think it would go pretty quick from one thing to another. It doesn't spend too much time in the low down parts of the film, which is good. You know, it's good for the film goer to have something going on screen, at least, you know, moving the plot forward in some sense. Not waste too much time, really. So I appreciated that. The film itself is mostly shot on site, it seems, mostly on scene, on actual places, which is really cool because you can see the difference. You know, it's not just CGI slop. It's not filmed in some 360 thing in Hollywood. So that's nice to see, at least. The music is very well done, I would say. The music sounds very nice. It adds to the film. It adds to the ambience of the film. And yeah, I would say that most people are going to like this film. Most people are going to watch it and think it's amazing, think it's great. There are definitely some moments in this film that I would say justify the price of admission. There are a few scenes in this film, without spoiling, I'll just say that they're basically horror scenes. Now, these two scenes are done very well, I would say, and I think that the common moviegoer will definitely enjoy these scenes. They are very lasting in terms of memory and impact. You know, you're going to remember these scenes. But it differs heavily, at least one of them, to my knowledge, differs a lot from what happened in that scene in the original Odyssey. And, you know, some people are going to like that, some people are not going to like that. I think it would have been nice to have the original writing for this part because it exemplified more of Odysseus's character in terms of his cunning, his wit. You know, in this movie, I would say that Matt Damon's Odysseus is very much just like a noble type of guy. You know, he makes some poor decisions, but he's unaware of the fact he thinks he's doing the right thing every time. And the Odysseus of the Odyssey is more of a scoundrel, if you will. He's more of like a Han Solo type of character. You know, he's a more complex character than just a noble guy trying to do the right thing, trying to get his men home. It's a little more complicated than the Odyssey. But the common person, like I said, that has not read the Odyssey is not going to know that, and they will enjoy scenes with this Odysseus in the film. Speaking of Matt Damon's Odysseus, I think he did okay. I think that a lot of the actors came here to act, and they did do a fairly decent job, even though the regular American English vernacular is very strange to me in this time period. But I don't know, is it better or worse than having everybody having English accents? I feel like they're both on the same level of kind of bad, in my opinion, but whatever. It's going to appeal to a larger crowd. It's going to appeal to a larger audience because they're speaking in regular American English. And you know, at the end of the day, we'll get more into it later, but that's kind of, you know, neither here nor there. When I entered this film, I knew that all of my expectations for any sort of historicity or appeal to things directly from the time frame in which this myth may have taken place was not really going to be present. So I already kind of erased that from my mind going into this film. Now, with that being said, I would say that as a movie-going experience, I would give this film a solid 7 out of 10. And the reason I say that is because some of those striking scenes, although they differ heavily from the original, they do leave an impact. And, you know, if you're a movie enjoyer, you're a moviegoer, you're going to enjoy and remember those moments, like I said. So for that alone, I think that the film is pretty good. But despite that, you know, I have a lot of issues with them deviating kind of heavily from the original Odyssey. Now, I know some people might be surprised that I gave this movie a 7, being that I'm very, you know, strict about a lot of historical stuff. But like I said, I went into this movie, I already knew none of that stuff was going to be here. So I kind of just went into it like, okay, this is some made up thing that somebody just made whatever they wanted to make, essentially. And it is what it is, you know. So on that basis, I rate the movie a 7. But obviously, I will give more of my context and more of my opinions about the things that I guess you would expect me to cover later on in the video. Now, moving on into the controversy of the film, I know people are complaining about Lupita Nyong'o and this and that, and whoever's Zendaya and this and that. Listen, if you're gonna complain about one part of casting, you have to complain about all of it, because none of these actors are Greek or look Greek or anything of the sort in terms of Greek of the time period. I mean, I'm not talking about modern Greeks. I'm not talking about, you know, Greeks 20 years ago. I'm talking about Greeks from great antiquity, from the late Bronze Age. These people don't look anything like them. And I'm not alluding to the Greeks being anything other than European or Anatolian descent. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they look different back then. And some people still today in Greece and in some parts of the Mediterranean still have this common Mediterranean phenotype, right? All I'm saying is, if you're going to complain about some part of casting, you got to complain about the rest, because none of them match the descriptions of the people that would have been around in that time. In theory, of course, because this is a fiction, but it is still set in the Bronze Age in the Mediterranean. And on to a secondary, more pedantic, more niche critique of the film, highly controversial part of the film, is the fact that none of the assets, in terms of the clothing, armor, ships, none of that has anything to do with Bronze Age Greece. And I know to the average person, they're not going to care about that. They don't give a shit about that. Even though it looks like cheap Party City garbage clothing, you know, garbage armor, literally looks like 3D printed garbage. There's no other way to say it. It honestly took me out of the film at times because it was so jarring how garbage some of this armor looked like, just straight up like plastic. It's so bad, honestly. And honestly, comparatively to what they had in the Bronze Age, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, we could have had this. We could have had this. Just saying. But we know where most of that budget went. That budget went to hiring people like Matt Damon and Robert Pattinson and Tom and all them people. Now, moving on into my historical, mythological analysis part, all I'm gonna say is that this film is not even in the bracket, not even in the space, nowhere near close. You see, like, I think that Robert Eggers, he set a good standard for historical films. I bring that up in all of my historical movie reviews because it's true. This guy, when he makes a movie, he does it well. He brings the period to life. He makes the sets from scratch. He makes the clothing from scratch. He takes inspiration from all things that are directly tied to the time period, to the place where it takes place. That's how you do historical movie making. Nolan could have done that, and he didn't. And, you know, whether it was because of the budget or whatever the case was, I think it was a huge letdown, because it could have been a big educational moment for people that don't know much about the period, don't know much about, you know, people from antiquity. It could have been a learning moment for people to see just how cool this shit really looked. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really could have been amazing. On top of that, the boat, you know, the boat scenes were good. I'm not going to say they weren't, but the boat scenes were shot on Viking ships. What do the Vikings have to do with the Mediterranean and the Bronze Age Greeks? I don't know. I don't know why their ship is in the movie, but I know to some people that's nitpicky. I'm telling you, it would have been cool if they would have had a bireme or something like that. That would have been what I would have preferred, honestly. Could have been cool. Costuming and ships and swords and all that stuff aside, the fact is that in terms of the mythology and in terms of the actual writing from the stories of the Iliad and Odyssey, when it comes to this movie, the script differs heavily, given that it is mostly in this American modern vernacular, right? This American modern speech. But apart from just that, it also doesn't really adhere to a lot of the things from the original. You had Zeus giving monologues, you know, at the beginning and the end, and Poseidon is even in there more physically, right? And there is also some characters that don't have really, they have maybe some words, but they don't have a very critical exchange of words with Odysseus that happened in the original Odyssey that to me is a very iconic scene. And spoiler warning, I'm talking about the Cyclops scene, which, by the way, is the scene that I was saying earlier is the one that you're going to remember, because the scream from the Cyclops genuinely disturbed me both times I watched this movie. It's so long and so loud that you can't help but be disturbed, and you know, in that sense, that was good cinema. But I would have much rather preferred the original dialogue between Odysseus and the Cyclops, because it would have led to you understanding the character of Odysseus more in terms of how they shape Odysseus's journey and how they shape Odysseus's motivations and his perspective on things and the guilt that keeps him from wanting to come home in this film. I thought it was done fairly well, but again, I would have liked to see more complication with Odysseus that we see in the actual Odyssey. Sadly, this movie doesn't adhere to that, or care to, I guess, but in my opinion, it differs a little too much. With that being said, though, his little retrospective moment with Penelope, where he, starts to talk about what happened in Troy and all that stuff, I thought that scene kind of hit. Apart from, again, the Party City costumes, like, kind of messed it up a little bit for me. I was like, okay, that looks bad. But then I was back in. I was like, okay, yeah, the music and everything, like, it kind of worked. It kind of worked a little bit, because I did feel a little bit of something there. But apart from that, that's really the only part that, I was, like, fully invested. The sirens, too. The sirens. That was another part that I was, again, with the music and everything, it was well put together, and I give that to Nolan. He knows how to film. He knows how to, add momentum, add weight to a scene. And I give that credit to him. But then again, as someone who is very pedantic about history, it was a letdown to me overall. With that being said, if I could have handpicked people to be in this movie, how I would have liked, I would have chosen people from southern Greece, from Cyprus, from Crete, from possibly parts of Northeast Africa, Ethiopia, the Levant. These are all groups and ranges of people that were a part of the demographics that were around at the time of what would have been the late Bronze Age in the Mediterranean. So I think that would have fit the movie a lot better. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if you like the movie or not. And just to give you something concrete, from a historical lens, mythological lens, I give this movie a 2 out of 10. Whatever. Anyways, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Keep tapping into your roots. Ashe.